Graeme called a dojo meeting early 1999. We usually had these meetings to brainstorm ideas on how to promote the club. This particular meeting, Graeme had something to say. He must have done a bit of thinking over the break. Graeme wanted to perform a substantial break. And if you know Graeme Sneddon, you know once he gets something in his mind, there's no changing it. So this particular break went like this. He wanted to break 2,000 concrete blocks to coincide with Australia Day in the year 2000, and in the process try and raise some money for a worthy children's charity.
We've been talking for a while about ways to raise interest in the martial arts in the Blue Mountains, where a lot of us were living at the time. We wanted to move past a public perception that it was just a combat sport where a bunch of lads spent their evenings happily thumping one another in a spirit of camaraderie, but we wanted to raise awareness that there was actually an opportunity for young women to learn important personal protection skills, for kids to learn principles of community safety. Of course, every man, woman and child involved in our school at the time already understood this. Joe Public, not so much. So I can't remember when, but we started to kick around an idea that we could put together an event for Australia Day 2000 to not only promote our school, but also raise money for the Autism Association. In doing that, we were inspired by stories of Tom Slavin's world record, Ameshiwali, in 75. He broke 4,368 concrete bricks in an hour. I think he was heading for 5,000, but he just ran out of bricks. But anyway, in 95, John Duncan broke 5,000 bricks in an hour. So likewise, we wanted to do something on a grand scale. When I say we, I mean Graeme. And coincidentally, Graeme had shown an intense dislike towards building materials for a long time. He'd regularly punched through bricks and lengths of timber and roof tiles and concrete blocks. So for this reason, he could never find employment in the building and construction industry.
Look, reservations going in, I didn't really have any, personally. Just, again, you know, if you know Graeme, if he believed it, you believed it. That's just the way it was.
Well, we had to put together a plan to make it happen. I can't remember the order of business after all this time, but I do remember it involved getting approval from the Australia Day Committee in the Blue Mountains to go ahead in the first place, getting Boral to donate 2,000 concrete Besser blocks and 1,000 ridge caps. Ridge caps are the concrete bricks, on the condition that we returned the Besser blocks, the intact Besser blocks, to them afterwards and disposed of the bricks that Graeme broke. We also needed to get approval from the Blue Mountain City Council to take down part of the cyclone wire fence around Glenbrook Park, where we were going to do it, to so that we get the trucks in to deliver the pallet loads of Besser blocks and bricks. And we also needed to hire 2 brick saws. The local hire company only had 2, and that was so we could work through the night cutting the bricks in half. When I say we, this time I mean Ray Gretsch. And some volunteers, and laying out rows and rows of Besser blocks, with each pair of Besser blocks topped by 2 of the cut bricks stacked one on top of the other.
Cutting of the bricks, different story. You know, you rock up to the field and there's just pallets and pallets of these concrete bricks. A little daunting, but you know, fortunately Vlado, who was the guy that helped me, we're both in the building industry, so it wasn't too bad for us. We just saw a job and we had to get it done. Look, Vlado and I set up the saws, organised the water, you know, put blocks in wheelbarrows and stacked them up ready for ourselves, and we had people helping us do that. Started cutting, it just become a numbers game. Before we knew it, 2-3 hours later, all the blocks were cut.
This prep had to be done as close to the event as possible to avoid the risk of vandalism of the site. So we had volunteers from the school, as I said, working like navvies to cut the bricks and get everything set up, while we had other volunteers on sentry duty until the event was scheduled to take place, just to keep everything safe. It was a mammoth effort by anybody's standards. While all of that was happening, Graeme prepared himself mentally and physically for the event, so he'd be the best placed person to talk about that aspect of it.
I guess thinking back, you know, breaking things, Tamashawari has always been a huge part of my, you know, Budo over the years. You know, I spent time researching various techniques, you know, speed breaks, power breaks, but I'd never done an endurance break. And, you know, in the dojo at the time coming into the new millennium, I wanted something that would, you know, certainly raise the profile of the dojo in the community at the time. I can't remember exactly when we had the conversation, you know, to go ahead with it, but I'm guessing it was around March, April 99. So it was a good 8-9 months in the planning stages. And my part was really quite easy. I left all the planning and logistics to, you know, Rob Lawson and Ray Gretsch and those boys. They had organised all the, you know, putting the event together. My job was really quite simple. I just had to, you know, focus on training myself just mentally and physically to, you know, be able to do the breaking. You know, physically I spent a lot of time just on, you know, Makiwara, just pounding pads just to condition my hand and stepping out the technique, you know, and then, you know, obviously the cardio fitness that went with it. And, you know, mentally I was just visualising, just working my way through it, stepping it out in my mind. I did that for months and months. And so by the time I actually got up there on the day, I guess I'd already broken it. I'd already gone through it in my mind. It was just a matter of filling in the blanks on the day.
But anyway, we kept him away from Glenbrook Park until the moment when the Tameshiwari demonstration was to start. That was to avoid distraction and maintain a single focus on the business of breaking multiple rows of double-stacked concrete bricks. Graeme intended to use a shote technique, a palm technique. We wrapped his hands and wrists with Zeto tape and crepe bandage to protect the bones and tendons. Doing that was pretty stressful because we didn't know what was going to happen to the silly bugger's hands. Anyway, the event started to the applause and cheers of this huge crowd in Glenbrook, and Graeme just powered through the double bricks like a machine. Perfect form, of course, and he smashed the final brick with a MP elbow strike, which was a nod to his teacher and master of the elbow strike, the late Tom Slavin. Well, the crowd just went nuts. The whole thing took 22 minutes while volunteers collected donations in buckets from the crowd, which completely exceeded our $2,000 expectations. Then we whisked Graeme away to put his arms that were mercifully still attached to his body into an esky full of ice water. Anyway, then our volunteers went into overdrive again, and they removed all the broken bricks and stacked the whole Besser blocks onto 5 or 6 pallets for collection by Boral. And the following day, Graeme and I went up to Waverley Cemetery to visit Tom Slavin's grave and share a glass of sake.
Yeah, I've often been asked over the years, you know, what toll did it take on your body? And well, the first thing to remember is I was 27 years old, and at that time I would consider myself to have been quite fit. So, you know, I'd taken the precautions of putting some light bandage around my wrist just to secure the wrist. You know, I wasn't fearful of losing any bark off my hands, but I was fearful of breaking my wrists. So, you know, we did take the time to put some strapping on the wrist joint. And I do remember, you know, a little bit of bark off the hands, my fingers. So when I actually impacted quite a few of the bricks, where they would fold, you know, there was some grazing, so, you know, times that by 1,000, they had taken the skin off my fingers and my knuckles, and obviously, you know, my shoulders, you know, the impact on my lower back. I remember looking back on the video, and at some point I had to stop and stretch my back, so, you know, the leaning forward and that continual impact, and, you know, I guess that took its toll on my body. But, you know, coming out of the event, you know, recovery, it was just a matter of, you know, Panadol for pain and lots of ice, just to bring down the swelling. But, you know, the adulation or the, you know, the feeling of having accomplished the feat for me, you know, was worth the physical pain a million times over.
Once we'd finished, we cleaned up, called the army in, the whole thing was set up. Graeme come from wherever he was, meditating or, you know, getting his mindset ready. And Graeme did the Graeme Sneddon thing and just smashed the blocks. It was never going to fail. On that day, it was spectacular. We had people from all over. You know, we had rock stars there. People just picking up blocks with Graeme's blood all over them and keeping them as a keepsake. I thought it was fantastic. For me personally, and I'm sure I speak for everyone from the club, it was, you know, it was memorable, and it was something that I'm very proud of being part of. We can't help but celebrate you know, it was a big achievement. I don't know too many people that could have done that break. Graeme would be at the top of my list.
But there was a strange epilogue to this event. For several days after the breaking, we'd been waiting for the Boral trucks to come and collect all the pallet loads that we'd stacked of the intact Besser blocks. And the Blue Mountain City Council was becoming very anxious about us restoring the sections of the fence that we had to take out to allow for vehicle entry. Anyway, after nearly a week, the pallets finally disappeared and the council was able to put the fence back up and everyone was happy. When I phoned Boral to thank them for all their assistance, they said they hadn't picked the pallets up at all. So they were understandably very, very angry that they'd lost around 6 tons of concrete blocks. They were stolen. We never found out what happened to them. And that was the event, really.
I was asked, recently in discussing the event, would I do it again? The immediate answer to that is no. No, I wouldn't do it again because that was the right thing to do at that time. The year 2000 bricks. So, it was something at that time that worked, that fitted. But, would I do something just as challenging? Would I do something just as monumental, physically, mentally? 100%. Absolutely I would. That's what martial artists, that's what we do.